Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Mo Aurora, and this is Jeff Shuela. Hi, Jeff.
How's it going, Mo? That was all right, eh?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. That was all right. And together we are the definition of just all right. We are the unintangibles. This is this is a fantasy football show by people who know that we do not know what we're talking about. We are not experts, and it's not hard to be an expert. You can just wake up one day and create a website, and now you're a fantasy football expert. We got ourselves a show here, but we're still not experts. We just
massive consumers, like to a point where we have
massive. We're really, really enthusiastic fantasy football players to the point where we're always riding the edge of self-destruction. But
in our own
lives, relationships, everything. But this show is actually an attempt to take what is already an unreasonable amount of time and energy and effort put into it, but to turn it into something productive, and hopefully, if you enjoy this show enough, then you don't have to feel compelled to make your own show just to justify your enthusiasm and your enjoyment of fantasy football. So we're not, like I said, we don't know any more than anybody else. We're not experts. What we do is we read all the blogs, we listen to all the podcasts, we consume all the fantasy football content out there, and then Jeff and I get together once a week. We talk about just everything we've seen and heard, and we just try to make sense of it all. Is that right, Jeff? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely listen to all the podcasts. So we kind of like, if you've missed a podcast, we're kind of like the fantasy pros a little bit, but like the podcast version and all the data and all that stuff together.
We're fantasy football pros, the people. I am ADP. Hello, nice to meet you.
But
that's just what it is.
I've never really so we've both been playing fantasy for over 20 years. I think I've had like one or two fantasy football dreams. So I don't think it actually reaches my like unconscious levels yet.
Well, that's good. That's good. This might be a step in the direction of making that happen, but we'll see. We'll see. But, yeah, I don't know. So that's what this show is about. Is we're just here to process all the same information that you guys are taking in, and this is just, Jeff and I would be making this call anyway. So, if we're interesting, you guys get a chance to listen in, and so let's go. That's really all I got. But Jeff, let me ask you, week one of the preseason is upon us. Isn't it weird to actually be excited about preseason football? But I am, aren't you?
This is the first year. I mean, because the off season is so damn long. It's the longest of all the pro sports. It's like 8 months.
And it's dead, right? Like the NBA has tried to make NBA a 365-day thing. The NFL doesn't bother. They're like, no, we can take a few months off and they'll miss us.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fantasy football player and a real one, like you've been twitching for months.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
I have been more ready to listen to podcasts than podcasters have been ready to make them.
Basically. I will be watching tomorrow just to watch some football. But
yeah.
I've never really watched it before, so I've definitely crossed the line into addiction and like patheticness.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the storylines tomorrow. I mean, Andrew Luck and they said play.
They said Andrew Luck's playing a quarter, the first quarter of the first preseason game. That's a statement that they're trying to make. They're trying to really show that he's healthy.
Yeah, maybe Jim Irsay will snap him the ball. We'll see.
All right, maybe. I mean, he might hand the ball off 20 times in the first quarter. But they'll have him come out to flip the coin, and everyone will be like, "Look, his shoulder's healthy, great." But no, it'd be good. It'd be good to see him throw the ball. It'd be good to see him throw the ball. It'd be good to see who he throws the ball to.
Yeah. No, I just want to see him, in a uniform and using arms. So that'll be good.
Be good. I'm also excited about just in general. I mean, they're on Hard Knocks. I haven't seen episode 1 yet, but I will be. But just even Hard Knocks or not, I'm really excited to see what happens to the Cleveland Browns this year. They are, to me, the most interesting team in football.
Yeah, I would agree. And just because, I mean, I haven't seen Hard Knocks. I don't know if the first episode may have come out yesterday.
And I haven't seen it yet, but a fiery speech by Jarvis Landry is making the rounds. So,
Answer me this, because they're trying to change their identity. And they, Josh Gordon's not there. So they drafted a guy, Antonio Callaway, who had drug marijuana history in the past.
Yeah.
Why would they draft this guy? He's the same position. They hang out. He's going to be hanging out with Josh Gordon every day. Like, is this not wrong person to be drafting? I mean, come on.
You know, it's amazing because maybe they were expecting to have Gordon in training camp by now, and then that would mean, oh, maybe he's a chance to be a good influence on the guy. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy like Josh Gordon. But you know, there's got to be like I'm a big Josh Gordon supporter. I want him to come back and I want him to succeed. And I respect the fact that he's making these cautious decisions for the sake of his recovery. This year, maybe it's just what's being reported to us, but this year feels different about him handling his off the field stuff, right? And so I'm optimistic. But yeah, I mean, the fact that like, oh, great, somebody else steps up to be the next Josh Gordon and get into trouble with weed. You also got like what I know about that Jarvis Landry speech. You know, he's making a big point about like, you know, if you're hurt, that's one thing, but if you're healthy, then you got to be here practicing. And it's like, even though he wasn't in the room, that sounded like it was directed towards Josh Gordon. And I wonder how much Landry actually feels that. I wonder how much Hard Knocks nudged him into saying that. There's a lot of factors at play here. It makes it hard to isolate any of them.
I don't think Jarvis Landry's a leader, man. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago. I think it was Kyle Williams. It was like a Bills player. He just decapitated like his neck from the back. I mean, he can do some dirty. He's been kind of dirty, man, a little bit. I don't know if.
I mean, Landry is. What I know of Landry is he's good enough to be the best offensive player on a bad offense, and. You know, but I don't know how important a player he is on a good one. You know what I mean? And I feel like
he's a possessions guy. So maybe like I think possession. If you're a possession player, it's okay for you to lose your mind every once in a while because you're just that little engine like down the field. You know, but you're not making the splash plays. You're making those dump offs, the 8-yard passes. I mean, if I was just catching 7-yard passes for 5 years, I would lose my mind.
Yeah, no, that's true. He's probably really excited now. Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. He could very well be more. It could have just been those were all 2-yard ins because his quarterbacks are garbage, and he was just desperate to get him the ball, right? But he's not gonna be the same target monster in Cleveland. If Cleveland succeeds, and really turns a corner, I think I have a hard time believing that it's because of Jarvis Landry more than it might be because of Josh Gordon or more. You know, they have 3 pretty interesting running backs in the backfield. They have two chances at finding a good quarterback. Like Jarvis Landry, if he's good, great. That'll just be a reflection of Cleveland being good. I don't think Jarvis Landry is going to drive Cleveland being good, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I think it's definitely a team effort. I don't even know if the fans are going to believe if they come out of the gate with a couple wins. I mean, it's like the Las Vegas team in the NHL. You know, no one expected the expansion team to go all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean,
unbelievable. Yeah,
it would be like the Browns. If they made the playoffs, every year the NFL has crazy stuff happening. So yeah. I guess I wouldn't be surprised anymore.
I'd be into it. And I will say as well, I mean, I say for how encouraged I am about this Josh Gordon stuff, but boy, I really wish he'd just get to camp. You know what I mean? I just want him on the field playing football, and I'll feel better, right? But he presents an ultimate opportunity to, you know, if he's available, and you're queasy about drafting him. The thing is, you could draft him as a wide receiver too, and if he doesn't work out, I feel like you can replace a wide receiver 2 in your lineup if you have to. But if he turns out to be Josh Gordon, and you got Josh Gordon as your wide receiver 2 on top of whoever else, he could be a difference maker, man.
I don't think not working out is really the option. I think the only option not working out equals just not playing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But you know,
if he's playing, I think he got a bona fide wide receiver 2 and maybe a wide receiver 1 possibly.
Right.
So
right, and if you lose him, then you only have to replace a wide receiver 2. And I have a feeling that there are 50 wide receiver 2s in fantasy football this year. You know,
don't draft him as your first wide receiver. Is what you're saying.
No, definitely not. I think some people do, and that's a mistake. I think right now, especially, but. Drafting him as your second wide receiver, I think that's a gamble worth taking because the downside is not that bad, and the upside could mean the difference between winning and just being another team in the league.
Like doing that, they'll draft Sony Michel with the knee injury. They'll draft Josh Gordon with his questions. They'll even draft Des Bryant because they're risk takers. So there are fantasy players who do that stuff.
Yeah, there are, and depending on how low you can get these guys, it could just be a lottery ticket, right? Like Des Bryant, you can get with one of your last picks in your draft, and it's like chances are if you don't chances are if you don't draft Des Bryant, you say that 10 times fast. You're still going to end up drafting someone that you're likely to drop during the season anyway, right? So you might as well draft Des Bryant. Well, I didn't say 10 times, but I said it twice. So.
He's definitely playing this year. I mean, I don't know. I can't believe no one signed him. The guy's like 30 years old. I can't believe he hasn't done drugs this summer. I guess he must be working out. Maybe he's with.
I love Des Bryant. I root for Des Bryant. I will allow you to make fun of him, but just so you know, I won't enjoy it as much as you do.
I'm a Cowboys fan, so.
Well, here's the thing, man. I don't know how much I am anymore. I'm not from Dallas, so I'm not like bonded to him or anything. I just like Emmitt Smith when I was a kid, right? But I live in Atlanta now, and I kind of like everybody being happy when the Falcons win. I don't know, man. I can choose. And this latest round of like the way the Cowboys just discarded Bryant makes me realize, like, wait, am I really committing to am I rooting for Jerry Jones? Am I rooting for the Jones family? Like, I don't think so, man. Like, hey, I'll be happy for them if they win. I don't dislike them like the way the rest of America does, but
so many players have lost fandom and their affiliations. They get lost inside of their fantasy teams. I mean, I'm a Lions fan.
Yeah.
50 years ago, I would have preferred my Lions to win than my team winning, and now I couldn't give a crap, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, at this point, I've made it pretty clear. Like, if the Cowboys somehow were great this year and won the Super Bowl, I've already established that I can't relish in that too much. I've already blown it for me. You know what I mean? But if the Falcons won, I would be genuinely excited, And if neither of them won, I would not care one bit. My fantasy team winning is still more important to me than Falcons, let's say, because I'm not from Atlanta. I just adopted the city. The city adopted me, so I'll root for the victory. Oh, I watched the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots it was a room full of transplants to Atlanta, so we were all rooting for the Falcons. But none of us are like Falcons fans, you know what I mean? And we're watching enjoyed the whole thing, and then all of a sudden we saw the collapse coming, and it was just like it was devastating to watch it. But then the next day I got up and went to work, and I was fine. Yeah. Everybody around me was all morose, but I'm like, hey, shit happens. I guess we haven't talked about if we're going to swear on this podcast, so sorry. I won't do that.
I think you can do some minor cursing. I don't see why not. It's the internet, man. We're trying to be real, so
Fair enough. Real quick, let's talk. We spent a lot of time on the Browns. We can spend a little bit more because let's talk about briefly. Let's talk about the quarterback situation. How do you feel about Tyrod? How do you feel about Baker Mayfield?
I think Hugh Jackson is gonna roll with Tyrod. I mean, I don't see why Baker is gonna come in there. Tyrod's gonna either get hurt on a scramble or somehow. That's the only way Baker is gonna come in.
Yeah,
I think Tyrod is not. He's not a risk taker traditionally. So I think Baker Mayfield may have gone first overall, but he might be the last quarterback to start starting games. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think Tyrod is okay, and I think he's got talent around him now that he could be better than he was in Buffalo. Just like we said with Landry, right? In fact, this whole team is a collection of guys who could be better now that they have better teammates. But I think Tyrod's going to start, and if he's good enough, then we'll keep him in, right? Like, I feel like they could be good enough to compete for the division. And I feel like if everything goes wrong, then you'll see Mayfield, right? They'll have that in case of emergency, break glass and keep selling tickets, right? But it gives everybody else on the Browns two chances at a good quarterback, and I think that's the important thing.
I guess Tyrod's just excited to be out of Buffalo, but if you look at his, he's played in Buffalo and Cleveland, two of the shittiest cities in America. I mean,
they're like cousin cities as far as I'm concerned. They're
an upgrade on Buffalo. I think it actually might be.
It's a bigger Buffalo, for better or for worse.
Well, they say Buffalo is a city where they build a lot of things, but nothing ever gets finished. So there's a lot of buildings and projects that are like 3/4 done.
I grew up just up the road from Buffalo. I'm very fond of the Buffalo area. I used to go shopping at the outlet malls. So every year I'd show up to school dressed like how the kids from Buffalo dressed the year before. So, but But yeah, in Cleveland too, man. These are just Great Lakes towns. I'm from a Great Lakes town. I understand those people, and I love them. But let's face it, you're a little bit dirtier than you care to admit. So am I.
I don't know what's worse. I mean, I'm trying to think of another NFL city besides Buffalo and Cleveland. I mean, I think those are the two I'd rather play the least, to be honest.
You know, I'm not too fond of Jacksonville. I got to be honest. Been there before. It's great to go and like do a show there or something like that. But if I had to live in Jacksonville, that'd be tough.
Yeah. Or
But
Baltimore might be number 3 or number 4. It's
Baltimore I can handle. Baltimore, I think I can handle.
I mean, Detroit is not even like, I think Baltimore and Chicago are like bigger murder numerically in the States. Like,
I gotta be. I know. Look, viewers, just Jeff and I are both Canadian, but I live in the U.S. now, and so like Jeff, let me just say this: once you live in an American city, like the vast amount of murder that happens in American cities compared to Canadian cities, that just becomes the norm. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not as fazed by murder cities anymore. I live in Atlanta.
How many murders have you seen in this year, this calendar?
I have not seen murders, but there was a shooting at a back-to-school event at the park right behind my old house here in Atlanta that I moved out of last year. A back-to-school shooting at a park. A shooting at a back-to-school event at a park. So, But enough about cities. Let's get back to football. So, Buffalo to Cleveland sucks, except if you're on a good football team. If you're on a good Buffalo Bills or Cleveland Browns team, I'm sure those cities are really fun to be in, and I wish both those cities the best of luck. What do you think about Cleveland's running backs? I think Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson.
They're all talented guys. I mean, I think they're stacked for a long time, actually. I mean, I don't know how long the Hyde contract's for, but Chubb, obviously. I heard a guy today on a podcast who had Chubb ranked higher than Saquon Barkley, actually. I'm sure it was Matt Waldman on the Christopher Harris podcast. And I love the Chris Harris podcast. So
yeah, me too. I heard that episode. That's a particular standout episode that I've had in mind. That was Matt Waldman. I'm not sure if I've ever heard him before, but like the way he approaches assessing players is like exactly as close to how I think I do it. And so I was really impressed by him. I don't know if I agreed with his assessment of everybody, but I agreed with his approach. And I too made note of how enthusiastic he is about Nick Chubb. And after having heard that, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you think he's
before I answer that? So that podcast came out today, like 5 hours ago.
Yeah. After this recording, yesterday.
Both consumed it immediately.
Yeah. Oh man, this happened the other week. Jeff texted something about, man, I'm changing my mind about this guy versus that guy. I'm like, yeah, I just heard the podcast too.
I had him as number 1 on the maybe losing his job.
Basically. Yeah. And when Jeff texted me about that, I was already looking at my phone, about to select my new podcast to listen to because I just finished that episode. So.
And let me just say, like, I get swayed so quickly. I'll be stuck in an opinion. I'll have the same opinion for weeks. I hear one analyst or expert talk about him and the other way, and I'm switching. I'm switching immediately.
Yeah, no, it's a problem. It's a problem, and so that's what you're going to see on this show every week. All right.
My answer to that question is I do think that Chubb is all fantasy-wise is going to be a great value. So I do think that he's going to pay off his, and I don't even know, is he a 6th round pick right now? 7th?
We'll see. We'll see what he is right now. I don't know if he'll stay there.
He's probably in the Carry-On Johnson range, maybe a little lower than Carry-On, I'm guessing. And
we're going to be talking about players a little bit more specifically coming up, but I'll just say that I think their intention is Hyde is already a good running back, and he was a guy that they could go out and get, and it's an upgrade on Kroll, and so they'll put him in there, and great. Now they have Carlos Hyde at running back, and they have Chubb developing, waiting in the wings, right? But Hyde is a guy that you don't know if you can get a full season out of him, and so if they lose Hyde at that point, then they have Chubb, and the thing is, I think Hyde could be good this year. I don't know if there's another level to him that we haven't already seen before, but Chubb has the potential, maybe just because we don't know that he can't. But right now, he has the potential to hit another level at that position that I don't think we're going to see from Hyde. So if something happens to Hyde and Chubb gets in there, it'll be interesting.
Make a prediction.
Yeah,
I don't think Hyde's going to have a good season. I think he's good for 700 yards, and his TDs will be okay. He might have 6 or 7 TDs, but I don't think he's going to have more than 700 to 800 yards, 750.
yeah. That sounds like a reasonably effective guy who gets hurt, and then they're glad to be able to replace him. So yeah, that makes sense. But I'm kind of bullish on the Browns overall as a team because I think that two good chances to find a good quarterback, 2 good like bell cow running backs, and you got Duke Johnson, who's a Swiss Army knife type. I mean, I guess they just ditched Corey Coleman, but 2 good chances for a stud receiver, and David Njoku at tight end seems like I think the Browns might be pretty interesting this year. But all right, let's move on. This isn't the Cleveland Browns fantasy football show.
Oh, yeah,
so this is a segment that we're gonna have. So this is our attempt at analysis, in a way, by amateurs. But we're gonna do a segment right now. It's a top 5 segment. We're gonna do this every week. Today's top 5 ADP risers. What we mean is up until now, this has all just been theory. We've been ranking guys, we've been moving up and down, reacting to news, but they haven't even been playing football. Now that they're actually going to start playing preseason football, we're going to see players do the things that we've been dreaming about them doing. And some of those players are going to cause the public to overreact to everything. So what we're going to do is we're each going to give you 5 players that we think can, in one game, in one series, in one play even, change your perception of them and potentially cause their own stock to skyrocket. So, Jeff, why don't you start? Who's number 5 on your list of ADP risers? Who do you got?
All right. So one thing that I think of is players that can make big splash plays. And right away, I have John Ross as my number 5 on my list. I think Cincinnati.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think that Cincinnati is just dying to have their number 2 receiver finally. The guy is a burner. He may be the fastest wide receiver in football. So they say. So he's like the James Thrash, right? James Thrash was the fastest guy for many years. He never really made a huge fantasy impact, but I think they want
your argument.
They want to get Ross involved. I think very early in preseason, they want to see what they have. And if they don't like, then I think Brendan LaFell may be by his phone again. And I do find that weird how like teams will cut players and then call them back 3 days later and they just show up.
I mean, it happens, right? Because like people, even guys that are on the bubble, they're that on the bubble, So like a guy like Brendan LaFell, it's just a numbers game until it isn't,
For the sake of not having to see Brandon LaFell's face for this season, I think Brandon LaFell will be
Brandon LaFell's face.
NFL. He'll be playing for the Toronto Argonauts this year, but I think John Ross will shoot up. I think he can make an impact in preseason. He'll catch 1 ball for 85 yards and probably the score right there. So I can see him going. He's in fantasy, not fantasy pros, but FFPC. He's 255th overall. So he's virtually undrafted. I think he will be. I think he's going to crack 180, maybe 180. He's going to climb substantially, I find.
So basically going from undrafted to drafted, right? It's like
undrafted to drafted. Yeah.
It's funny because we got a few second-year wide receivers who we didn't see anything out of last year. They're almost like John Ross especially. He's like a ghost. You know what I mean? I just like I see that he got drafted. But then, like, I've never seen him. I know nothing about him. But like one deep bomb that he catches, one play where he makes Andy Dalton look good. Suddenly, he could turn everyone's perception of the Bengals across the board. If he can make Dalton look good for a series in the preseason, yeah, man, I can see it. It's a good pick.
I just think that the small receiver is back again. I think you're going to see some of these small, quick guys making an impact in fantasy. So that's my opinion.
Interesting. We'll get to that another time. You can expand on that. I'll say number 5 on my list, also a wide receiver. Maybe not quite as obscure, but I think ranked very lowly right now. That is Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Allen Hurns, who's currently on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 47 117th pick overall. Now, wide receiver 47, that is like NFL wide receiver 3, right? And Dallas's passing game is just being written off completely this year. And I don't expect them to be very good, but I think they're still going to be an NFL offense, you know? Dak's got to throw the ball to someone. He's got to throw the ball sometime. And Hearns is the number one guy he's the number one wide receiver on the Dallas Cowboys offense right now. I think one good game, one good series where Dak and Hearns look like they're on the same page, they make something special happen. People are going to remember that Hearns was a viable fantasy starter before, and then they're going to think that he can again. And I don't think people are too excited about the idea of the Dallas Cowboys being a bad team. So if they look good in preseason, I think people are going to talk themselves into the Cowboys being better. I think Hearns can rise as far as by the time, let's say, like Labor Day weekend or like when we're finishing up the drafts and auctions. I think Hearns can rise up as high as 76 overall, wide receiver 31, which is currently where Julian Edelman's being drafted. And I think, you know, in big enough leads, wide receiver 31, that's a guy who's starting for you. And I think I can see Hearns sneaking up into a category of like, I'm not going to draft Edelman as a starter I don't have. I'll just draft Hearns because he's the number one.
I could see him rising possibly, but I could see Dak has to throw to someone, but I honestly think that there shouldn't even be wide receivers lining up for Dallas. I think they should have 9 blockers.
Yeah, it should go single wing offense, right? Yeah.
Just have an offensive line of like 9 people, and actually make it 10. Just snap the ball to Ezekiel, right?
You're actually only allowed to have 7 players on the line, Jeff. Come on. I can't have you chipping away at our credibility on our show. But,
and you picked Allen Hearns because you're wearing like cowboy colors right now. I feel like you're wearing like that cowboy gray or something. I don't know.
I'm actually wearing Markham District gray. This is my high school football team shirt. This shirt is 22 years old.
Wow. Wow. That is Allen Hearns gray, by the way.
Okay, if you say so. Fine. So you're not going to be convinced by Allen Hearns when he shines in the preseason.
I don't even like his name, dude. He sounds like some sort of like R&B keyboard player or something. Allen should be like in like some sort of blues band or something.
Maybe he is in the off season. You don't know.
Alan Parsons. It's the Allen Hearns Blues Band.
Allen Hearns Project, right? Yeah. All right. So you suitably dumped on my number 5 choice. Who's your number 4, smart guy?
I got Kerryon Johnson because I might as well talk about a Detroit Lion. That's my team. We've seen
number 2 on my list. So why don't you go ahead?
Nice. So all it takes is a shoulder wiggle. Like Amir Abdullah just does this whole thing. Kenny Golladay has to show that he has 2 hands. Lions have done really well in the preseason. So I think that Kerryon Johnson, he's 72nd overall in FFPC right now. I think if he bulldozes a couple tackling dummies, he could wind up in the right below Darius Geis. He can climb 20 to 25 spots.
Wow. Okay. I agree with you. Like I said, he's number 2 on my list. So that means I'm even more bullish, not on him, but bullish on people's ability to overreact to him. Because you look at Detroit, they have LeGarrette Blount for all the hard charging dirty work. They have Theo Riddick to catch passes. But the only thing and they're both pretty good at what they do, but the only thing that'd be better than having those 2 guys would be having one guy who can do both of those things pretty well. The Lions are jonesing for a guy like that. I think all of the fantasy football nation is jonesing for a guy like that. And I think if Kerryon Johnson has one game where, he breaks off a couple of runs and he catches a couple of passes, people are going to get so carried away. They're going to draft him like a starter. And I think he can go even higher than you think. I think he can go as high as RB16, where currently LaShawn McCoy, Derrick Henry. So my thinking is in the 16 to 20 range at running back, you got a lot of guys. That's where you start to get a little bit Kenyon Drake, I don't know. Alex Collins, I don't know. Lamar Miller, I don't know, right? And that's where you're going to look at rookies. And so you mentioned Geis, but I think Kerryon can leapfrog Geis. If Geis just looks fine because Washington looks fine, but if Kerryon looks good, I think he can leapfrog. I think Kerryon can even talk his way into becoming the 2nd rookie running back off the board.
Wow. Okay. After Saquon and Darius.
No, before Darius. I'm saying after Saquon.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible.
Wow.
People get back carried away. We've seen it in Detroit. We've seen it with Amir Abdullah. Now people are going to hope to like get it right this time, you know, and it could be the same thing. Instead of calling him Carry On Johnson, they should call him Carried Away Johnson because that's what they get about Carry On Johnson.
I think Carrion Johnson is just like a 25-year-old Joik Bell, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that was your number 4, right? My number 4 is Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Pat Mahomes. Right now he's going 110 overall, QB 15 on Fantasy Pros consensus ADP. I think, everybody in fantasy football this year is bragging about how long they're going to wait, how late they're going to wait to draft their quarterback. And what that tells me is, first of all, that one strategy is probably a little bit overplayed, but also it also tells me that people aren't that excited about quarterback. Mid-range quarterbacks, they're not that exciting, right? Some of them are good, so they are going to be good, but they're not exciting. Pat Mahomes is exciting, and Pat Mahomes can, in very little preseason action, demonstrate the potential of a really big season, a Deshaun Watson-esque season, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo-esque season, whatever, somewhere in between. I think, if Mahomes can, put together, let's say, a really nice throw. If he throws a touchdown to Watkins, to Hill, and to Kelsey, and if he has 2 more really nice throws than he does really terrible interceptions, that's all it'll take to convince people that he's the real deal. And just like the way people drafted Mariota around 7-8 last year, because they got excited in his potential, I think Mahomes can move all the way up to QB 8, 74 overall, which is currently where Kirk Cousins is going. And I think Mahomes can leapfrog everybody between Key and Cousins by the time the season starts.
That really just scares me as a human being that, fantasy players just twitch right away. Like they'll see something and they'll just lose their minds.
Oh man, you have no idea. So I looked at, I made my list last night and I looked at the rankings, and then I looked at the rankings again today, and they'd already moved a little bit, like we were talking earlier about, Christopher Harris and Mark Waldman. Mark Waldman, is that his name?
Waldman.
Matt Waldman. I'm sorry, Matt Waldman. You're a great analyst, but you're not great at clearly stating your name for me.
Great voice, though. He's got a good voice.
Great voice. But we were talking about that podcast, and some of the guys that they talked about, you can see the changes in the rankings from yesterday to today. It's amazing.
So crazy.
That's how twitchy people are.
Yeah.
But so that was my 3. So no, that was my 4. Sorry.
My number 3, I'm going to stick with quarterbacks. Andrew Luck, for obvious reasons. I think he will rise dramatically. He's FFPC 111th overall. Yeah. And I think 24 hours from now, his ADP is going to rise substantially because we'll see him play that quarter. If he looks like his shoulder is still intact, I think he could climb by the end of preseason, though, altogether in about 4 weeks. I think he can crack maybe right in the Breeze Brady territory. I think you're telling me that Mahomes can be that insane with, a couple flicks of the wrist to Sammy Watkins, a couple shoulder jerks by Andrew Luck. And, if he stays healthy, because people know what kind of talent he has. So I think, people will draft him in that spot and be QB5.
I'm right there with you. He maybe he was already enough of a star that he didn't make my list, but it's a worthy choice. Look, if both Mahomes and Luck show something and make people go crazy, Luck will end up ranked ahead of Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like I think Luck can crack into, like you said, people are like, for Breeze, people are like, yeah, Breeze is good, but nobody's like foaming at the mouth to get Breeze, right? Brady, I think people are down on. I think Cam is. I can see Luck moving up to where he gets drafted behind Cam at quarterback. Let's say, no, it's a good pick. That's a good pick. So that was your number 3. My number 3, we talked about him earlier, but Cleveland running back Nick Chubb. I think that same thing. Carlos Hyde, he's an established vet. He's not going to be out there on the field much during preseason. He's not going to show us anything to change our minds about Carlos Hyde, whatever we think about him now, which is pretty good until I think we're still going to think that. But then when we see Chubb on the field, if we see Chubb be electric, if we see him look like he can catch passes better than we all think, yeah, I think people are going to get carried away thinking, you know, mid-season replacement, he's going to get the job and go nuts, you know, and I think people in preseason are going to think they're seeing a league winner in Chubb. You know, that's how exciting it can be when you see a really good rookie running back like that. Right now, as of today on Fantasy Pros, he was 97 overall, running back 38. I can see him going as high as 55 overall, running back 24, which is currently where Mark Ingram is going. And I think come Labor Day weekend, when people are choosing between drafting a starting running back that you can't start for 4 weeks or drafting Nick Chubb, who you if you wanted to could start in week 1, I think people are going to go with Chubb.
You're a crazy man.
No, I think the world is crazy.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I'm not saying that that's how you're thinking, but
yeah.
Yeah, and so and this year, like, there's 2 players named Chubb in the NFL, and before there were 0 forever.
Yeah. So you should have 2 players left now, and I only have 1 because I had carry on as well. So why don't you give me your 2? Then I'll give you 1, and you give me your 1. Okay. So
okay. Des Bryant, 130th overall in FFPC, high stakes, because there are people in high stakes still drafting Des Bryant. So people who have money on the line think that this guy obviously is going to come back and he's going to make an impact. I think he's still too good to be on the sideline. He's 30 years old, and my prediction, he's going to play in Seattle next year. I think this year.
That would be my favorite. Right now, they still have Brandon Marshall until further notice. Maybe if Marshall doesn't work out, Dez will step in, and if he does end up in a situation like that, I don't think they've mentioned Dez to Cleveland, and I don't think that'd be a good spot. I think if you're bringing Dez in to like be a mentor and get young guys to whatever, I don't know if that's what Dez is good for doing, but a good team, a good quarterback that knows how to get Dez the ball, because Dez is really good at what he's really good at. He's not really good at everything. So if you don't expect him to do everything or make him have to do everything, if you can just make him do, those contested catches, being open when he's not, like that's the stuff that he can do. And I think a quarterback that knows how to get him the ball the way he needs the ball to be gotten to him, he can be successful. Can you imagine Dez Bryant finding, whether it's Seattle or another landing spot, can you see him arriving in a situation, looking good, and then actually being started on fantasy teams in week 1? Not just because of the name value, but like because he like merits consideration.
Yeah, if he's attached with Russell Wilson, yes, for sure. And see where Baldwin is also.
That's true.
Yeah, so
Seattle definitely. If he ends up in Seattle, then I can absolutely see him starting. I wonder what other. I mean, until Green Bay got Jimmy Graham, I would have thought that would have been a great situation for Dez Bryant. It also would have been fun to see him like spend a season exercising the demons of the catch that got taken away from him there. So that would have been fun. But yeah, I mean, I like him. I hope he winds up somewhere, and it could be exciting to see.
What I'd like to do is actually segue into my number 1, because he's kind of attached to this whole situation, and we'll do your number 1. My number 1 is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, okay.
Not because he's going to be doing something insane in preseason, but I think because fantasy owners will not see Doug Baldwin until September.
Yeah.
So I think, fantasy owners get very nervous. They want to know what's going on, and I think Tyler Lockett, they've seen what he can do. He can run the tree. He can go deep. He can do a lot of things, and he's with Russell Wilson. So I think he will climb. What are your thoughts on Lockett?
Well, I think what you're telling me by having Lockett number 1 and the fantasy of Dez Bryant landing in Seattle at number 2, that kind of makes sense to me, because if you think about it, it's like you look at Seattle right now, you see, people are down on the running back situation, their ability to run the ball. Baldwin being hurt, there's like this huge dearth of talent, and yet nobody's really talking about Russell Wilson not being good this year. Russell Wilson's always good, and Russell Wilson's the kind of player, he could be the only good player on his team, and everything be kind of okay. And so, but what that means is if people are low on Seattle but still where they normally are on Russell Wilson, that means that the market is starving for a Seattle wide receiver to look good in preseason so they can get excited about him. That makes sense.
Yeah.
He's just
record. He's 156th overall in FFPC. So I think he can crack maybe 110, maybe 150.
Yeah. So kind of go from a late round flyer to like no, this guy's in my rotation. I expect him to start for me on bye weeks, and if somebody gets hurt,
I would draft Tyler Lockett. I would have drafted him even before with Baldwin. I would draft him. So all right, Mo, who's your number one?
All right, number one, I have another wide receiver. And before I say what it is, just want to make the point that you notice how Jeff and I are really optimistic about a lot of wide receivers' abilities to just come out of nowhere and be really good. What that should tell you, what that tells me, is that no wide receiver is worth overdrafting, is worth prioritizing all that much, because like there's a lot of the fact that the NFL is a passing league, that doesn't mean that, stud wide receivers are going to get 20 targets a game the way running backs used to get 20 carries. What that means is more passing to running backs, more passing to tight ends, more passing to the second wide receiver, third wide receiver. 80 wide receivers are going to get steady diet of targets every week. And there's going to be tight ends and running backs on top of that. I think, the fact that any wide receiver can come out of nowhere and be great says something about those players, but also says that any wide receiver that you have in your lineup can easily be replaced if necessary.
Before you give your number one,
yeah,
I bet you that Dallas does not have a top 40 wide receiver this year.
Okay, fair enough. That's possible. That's very possible.
All right. Give me your number one. One.
Here, okay. This wide receiver. Dallas would have a top 40 wide receiver if this guy was in Dallas and had all of his situation, but in Dallas. Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. He is right now, he's going 94 overall, wide receiver 38. But, there's lingering excitement from Jimmy Garoppolo last year. Garoppolo and Goodwin together were great for the last 5, 6, 7 weeks of the year. He produced like a wide receiver one, a fantasy wide receiver one, not just an NFL wide receiver one. So we've seen a stretch where you can do it. And I think that without even getting carried away with San Francisco optimism, it's like, Pierre Garçon is there, and Pierre Garçon is a good wide receiver. He's been a good wide receiver for 3 teams, right? So that says something about him. Many years apart, good seasons, good solid player. But he has not done anything to make me think that he needs to be prioritized over Goodwin as their number one wide receiver, And I think that if Garçon is the best wide receiver on your team, it's a middling offense. Goodwin playing at the level that we saw him play last year could be a difference maker. And I think if people see Goodwin, and again, oh look, a legit bona fide starting wide receiver who's going to get targets, who's got a job, who's got opportunity, who's shown talent, I think he's going to skyrocket. He could skyrocket if he shows us anything, and he could go all the way from 94 wide receiver 38 to I think as high as 33 wide receiver 14, which is currently where the aforementioned injured, questionable Doug Baldwin is. And I think you come to a point where people are going to be excited about Goodwin, and he's going to be able to start for them week 1, and they know it,
He's got a better name than Allen Hurns for sure.
Yes, and for that reason alone, he's number 1 on my list and not number 5.
What I was laughing at when you were doing that, it was not the Marquise Goodwin. It's just whenever you mention Pierre Garçon, because he reminds me of like the wide receiver Frank Gore. He's just man.
That's a great way to put it, man. Yeah, like those two guys are like. If you were to make a fantasy football team of low upside guys who just will have a job and do it well enough to keep it, Frank Gore and Pierre Garçon would be like your running back 1, wide receiver 1,
I do like I like Marquise Goodwin. I find like Robbie Anderson would be like Marquise Goodwin light. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah. Okay.
The guy
I might give Goodwin a little bit more credit, but that also might mean I'm not giving Anderson enough credit. But he's good there too.
Without the DUIs.
Situation there. There's a lot of optimism in San Francisco. I don't get carried away about Kyle Shanahan's a genius offensive coordinator. Like I said, I watched him help lose the Super Bowl. I don't know. But I think that there's, San Francisco's kind of like Cleveland in that there's like this collection of middling talent that the sum could be greater than the whole, who knows? Yeah, we'll see. But I think these are good examples that we've gone through. 9 guys between 2 of us of guys who if you see their stock skyrocketing, just give it a second thought, you know?
I don't know if this is really a bold call, but I do think that Goodwin will be more consistent than Brandon Cooks this year because I think that he's going to get more targets. He's Cooksy. He's very Cooksy though. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I mean, I think the potential is for him to be drafted higher than Cooks because I think people are sick of Cooks's on-off, hot-cold. But you know, okay. So since you bring him up, Brandon Cooks, I like to defend having guys like that in your lineup because the way I look at it is if you have Cooks and he's on some weeks, he's off other weeks, fine. But like his end of season totals, he's like wide receiver 8, wide receiver 12, whatever. Like he puts it up, right? And it's like if you can't win, and if you don't win and you're blaming Brandon Cooks, I don't think Cooks is the problem. I think it's the rest of your lineup that's the problem.
Yeah, you're the problem.
Yeah, well, it's the rest of the lineup. It's like it's not Cooks. It's because you got cute and you only have Stafford at quarterback and you only have this guy. Your whole team is I'm going to wait for late and get this guy, and you're like Brandon Cooks doesn't do it.
I definitely for the next episode would like to get into a little bit of strategy, not in terms of like maybe roster construction possibly, but also talk about PPR and standard and how we both actually think that standard's a better format.
Shit, those are fight words, and also spoiler alert for next week. So if you're out there watching, start getting upset about it already, and spend a week imagining what we might have to say to make our arguments too. So that'll be fun.
Thanks so much for watching, and if you actually are still watching this, hopefully, I can't wait for preseason week 1. I know it sounds so pathetic, but I'm gonna go sit on my couch right now and just stare at this blank screen for the next 18 hours or so.
Yeah, football starts, right? Yeah.
If you're out there and actually watching our first podcast and actually watching this last minute, feel free to leave a comment. Let us know if you're excited for preseason week 1. If you have any rituals, you're just happy to see football back. And I know Mo has the email address for our new podcast.
Yes, you can email us at theunintangibles@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter and Instagram at unintangiblesff. So we are slowly rolling out our online presence. As we do this, we're on the. Imagine this web series as being under scaffolding right now. That's this. Like I said, this is our preseason too. So just go find us everywhere and watch as we become a thing. Be a part of it.
We want you to be our 3rd follower and our first YouTube subscriber. So we'll give you a shout out if you're because I think me and Mo we got to follow. We haven't even done that yet, but
I haven't even followed it myself yet. No.
So, anyways, thanks so much.
Yeah. Find us, let us know you're out here, and nudge us into making sure that we keep doing this bigger and better. Maybe not bigger, but better every time, because it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Most of the fun about playing fantasy football, I think, is getting to talk to your friends about fantasy football. And so that's what we want to do. We're doing it anyway, so we're just going to make a show out of it. And you guys are welcome to join us. And, let's have a great year, shall we?
Wonderful, man. I'll see you next week, Mo.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
Peace.